I'm addicted to leaving reality with a chemical. All a drug is a chemical that changes your perception of reality. Why is my reality so painful? There's pain from the addiction itself, and then there are preceding events, experiences that I can justify as an excuse to use since I got cleaned up. There is no emotional pain great enough that would justify me using it.
Welcome back to the show, Disruptors. I'm your host, Aaron Hale. This is Point of Impact. Today, Disruptors, we're joined by Ken Miller. Ken is an Ivy Leaguer, a Dartmouth grad. He's also a three-time felon and author of Becoming Ken. His story is 2 decades of cycling through substance abuse, homelessness, and incarceration to radical transformation. It's proof that your past doesn't dictate your future. Only your decisions do. Without further ado, my conversation with Ken Miller, or Baked Alaskan. Ken, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Hey, it's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I gotta tell you, I read your book, and I don't know how to say this or describe it, but forgive me, it's depraved. Comes to mind. There was some shocking stuff in there, and I literally don't mean to be offensive, but my goodness, the life I suppose your previous life was beyond what many can even imagine. Alcohol and drugs and what that led to. So I guess my first question is, where did that start? What was that? Was it Sam? Was it the first taste of alcohol? What happened?
Well, to bring the audience up to date, let's give them a little background on how I got to the point where I first became an alcoholic or addicted. I was born in 1962, and I am an African-American biracial child. My mother was a white teenage runaway. My dad was a black pimp and drug dealer in New York City. So I always like to tell people I'm Black Irish. That's what I am. And my mother put me up for adoption at birth, or put me into the foster care system. So I did 6 years of foster care. And then I was adopted by Irene and Sam Miller, lived upstate New York. When I was 12 years old, I moved to Anchorage, Alaska. And so that's where I did my high school years and formative years. I like to call them formative years, even though I think all years are formative once you have consciousness, which, for most people is 3 and 4 years old. So my father was an alcoholic. He was a violent alcoholic. Later on, he was to shoot my mom 6 times and also come to shoot me, at my job a few years later. But again,
how old were you? I'm sorry, I apologize. But how old were you when your mother was shot, when Sam shot?
23. 23. I was just got out of college.
And you also, when you were in foster, you had you call him your twin.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever find him? I know I'm jumping around here a little bit, but
no problem.
You guys are split up.
Yeah. So the way the foster care system worked, or at least at that time, this is in the 60s, is that they took 2 black children and we went to all the foster homes, and you would go for a month, a week, 3 months, whatever it may be. But I went with another young man or child named Jacob. As a 3 and 4 year old, I just thought he was my brother because that's all we did. We played together and loved him to death. I mean, that was my brother. And then when it came time for adoption, and Irene and Sam Miller, they only wanted 1 child. They chose me And so I left Jacob with the last family, which was the Turleys. I'll still never forget them. And I've been looking for him for 30 years and cannot find him because I don't know what the last name is. I can't find the Turleys. That's the name I remember from when I was 5 or 6. So it's just one of the few, there's a term we use in life called unfinished business. And every individual, if they so choose to think about it, has unfinished business. And I only have 2 or 3 in my whole world. I've found everybody else. I've made all the amends, all the apologies. So yeah, that's what happened with Jacob. And I'd love to find him. They would give me some closure. I'm hoping he's alive. And I would bring tears to my eyes to see him again.
Yeah, but that's the nature of the system, right? There's a layer upon layer of secrecy.
Exactly.
Beyond just the bureaucracy itself. You've got people who don't want that stuff to be public, especially juvenile records. So it's understandable, but yeah, that is a shame that you haven't been able to find them. So you were in Anchorage during your teens and early 20s, and Sam, your adopted father.
Yes.
He was what did your folks do for a living?
My mother ran the schools of nursing. So she was like the dean of the schools of nursing, very educated, went to Columbia's Teachers College, had been an RN since the 40s, but she was a instructor teacher of nursing and then became the administrator, coordinator, or dean of nursing schools, so schools of nursing. And then my father was an accountant. He had been a mechanic, but then he became a low-level accountant. And that's what he did when he was sober, and not under the influence or circumstances brought about by his alcoholism. So, he ended up spending, quite a few years in prison after the shooting. But, it was something that I chose to deal with because I had to. Because again, we're coming back to why did I start drinking and or why did I become an alcoholic? Before we get there, the audience needs to understand that I was what they would call precocious. And what that means is that I was intellectually and academically blessed. And so I was what they call a National Merit Scholar. I was accepted to Harvard. I went to Dartmouth College, Ivy League, and got my degree from that college. I went to college having never drank. I had like a half a beer in high school, what they call senior skip day. It's official, but my senior spring, we skipped school officially, and I had a half a beer. That's it. No problem. Then I go off to college. And so let's talk about why I started drinking. The reason I started drinking, that's what you do in college. You drink beer. It's common. You smoke weed. It's common. At least in 1980 it was. Maybe they don't smoke weed anymore in college. I don't know. I'm not in that world. But I know they drink because you read about sometimes the consequences of alcohol on campus. So we do it as a social lubricant. You do it. And many people, and in fact, the great majority of people don't have a problem with it. But I had a problem with it. I am genetically disposed to addiction and alcoholism, period. 100%. It has nothing to do, this is my truth, my belief, has nothing to do that my dad beat me, that I was a foster child, that I couldn't read when I was adopted, that I didn't know who my biological mother. That's not why I'm an alcoholic. That is not why I started drinking. I started drinking to be able to interact with others and to talk to women, in the fraternities. That's why I drank. And it worked. I got to talk to women. That worked. And I had a lot of friends. I joined a gang in college. We call it a fraternity, but it's a gang. that was my gang, called Bonesgate. So I began drinking. Within 1 month, I'm an alcoholic. And it's real important that I want to share what is an alcoholic. This is my definition of an alcoholic. An alcoholic is a man or woman who has the inability without any certainty to control the amount they drink once they begin drinking. I have no certainty. So I could go in and say, I just want 1 beer or 2 beers. And next thing I know, I've drank 20 beers. And as an alcoholic, I make really poor decisions under the influence of alcohol. I drink to excess. I make poor decisions. And the bottom line is I cannot drink without pain on the back end. Period. I can't do drugs without pain. And I'm talking about volitional use of illicit drugs without pain on the back end. Period. I have been clean and sober now 21 years plus, and will continue that until the day I die. That's my statement. That's my truth. And that will be my truth. I always say this. People say, well, what's your goal in the anonymous programs? Or what is your goal in recovery? I have one goal, just one goal. And that's to die, never having picked up again. That's the only goal I have. I want to die before I ever pick up volitionally on purpose a mind-altering chemical. I've been on drugs since I got cleaned up. The doctor gave them to me. The doctor needed them to operate. Okay, I'm cool. I didn't choose, and what I also do is I control. I give it to my wife, and she handles, the pain relievers, because I've had like 2 or 3 operations. I'm in my 60s. Okay. So I get off them as quick as possible. And that's usually 1 day that I'm on anything that's a narcotic. And then after that, it's aspirin and Tylenol. So anyway, that's why I drank, and that's how I became an alcoholic.
You mentioned the reason why,
Mm-hmm.
or at least how you got started,
Mm-hmm.
but there were a number of dominoes set up,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
The being in the foster system,
Mm-hmm.
the perhaps genetic predisposition with your blood family. I don't know, and then of course your formative childhood with Sam, of course, is a frontline experience, witness to alcoholism. Whether you had started then or not, you were certainly being shown, right? But I went to college. I joined a fraternity. I drank a lot of beer, a lot. Falling over that I guess crossing that line from drunk college kid to alcoholic. And then it wasn't just alcohol; it was drugs. When did drugs enter the picture?
So beautiful, beautiful question. The listeners, please hear this. I am addicted to leaving reality. That's what I'm addicted to. I'm addicted to leaving reality with a chemical. Okay. And once I imbibe, take in, whether I shoot it, because I've shot, I've smoked, I've drank, chemicals. Remember, they're drugs. Alcohol is a drug. All a drug is a chemical that changes your perception of reality, whether it's aspirin or heroin. It changes your perception. I have pain in my left knee. I take some aspirin and it changes the perception of pain in my left knee. It's a drug. Okay. We just have what are called illicit drugs, and I was addicted. So I always tell people, it doesn't matter to me how I flew. Okay. I just want to get high. Okay. It could be a Piper Cub. It could be the Concorde. It could be a 747. And some of them were 747s, believe that, okay? But my thing is I wanted to change my perception of reality. I created a world where the reality was painful, but the reality was painful many times because of the drugs and alcohol. So I used everything. And what I mean by everything, anything, if a person told me this was a drug, I remember I was in the UW district. UW is University of Washington in Seattle. I'm in the park. I'm homeless on the streets. And gentleman said he had some pills. I said, give them to me. Let me have a couple. I took them. To this day, I don't know what they were, but I'll tell you, within 20 minutes, I was crawling on my hands and knees trying to get back to where I was staying. Literally at 11:30 in the afternoon, crawling on my hands and knees because I burglarized a house one time. And a drug addict burglar, first thing that we do is we go to the bathroom because that's where the drugs are. That and in next to the bed. And I'm a drug addict. So I go there, I found some drugs, I crushed them up, and I shot them up. To this day, I don't know what they were. I have no clue. But that's a drug addict for you. And I was addicted to leaving reality. Now, because I'm addicted to leaving reality, why is my reality so painful? There's pain from the addiction itself, physical, emotional. And then there are antecedents or preceding events, experiences that I can rationalize, justify. That is an excuse to use. When I talk to guys who have relapsed, I said, why'd you relapse? And they usually will give me like 5 or 6 different things. I say, hey, check this out. I only need one, and then we can move on. It's just an excuse. So just give me one. You don't have to give me 5 different reasons. It's like, if you think, if my emotional pain, usually it's emotional pain, even though it can be physical for, the pain relievers. If my emotional pain is great enough, can't you co-sign that that's a good reason why I used or drank and broke my, clean time or sober time? No. So literally in my world today, there is no pain, emotional pain great enough that would justify me using. I've lost 2 mothers and a wife since I got cleaned up, dead. They passed away. Okay. And those were painful, all of them. I found my biological mom and only had her for another year and a half. She passes away. My adoptive mother, who was the finest, most beautiful woman I've ever known in my life, unconditional love for me, passed away. My wife passed away. All right. So I've dealt with loss of those who are dearest to you. I've dealt with financial. I've dealt with health issues. And I didn't pick up or use. I've taken away excuses. And one of the reasons is real important that I say it wasn't about what happened to me, because what an addict or alcoholic starts to think is this: if I deal with the shame, if I deal with the preceding excuses or rationalizations or justifications about what happened to me by this person or this situation, then I can drink without pain on the back end. Then I can drink or drug successfully because I've dealt with the shame of, some sexual impropriety when I was 14. No, it doesn't work like that. If you're an alcoholic or drug addict like me, it would never work like that, because biologically and physiologically, I cannot with any certainty bring in a mind-altering chemical on purpose and believe that I can control the outcome.
I did not want to become one of those disabled veterans that just sat on the couch feeling sorry for himself. I've always loved being creative. My creative spark was in the kitchen. I loved making others happy with the food I've made. And with this business, I can share that with so many more people.
Order now at eodfudge.com. You mentioned your mom, your adopted mother, and it it's incredible that she supported you throughout all of this. It, Despite not being a blood relation, she adopted you and she became your mom. And it's um it's pretty incredible. You at least had someone when you got sober, but she underwent quite a bit between her husband and her son. She didn't have a very easy life. Can you tell me what it was like to make amends? Uh, how did it feel? What were the conversations like when you were finally sober and you're becoming this new man, Ken?
Well, as a part of the 12-step programs, we have to make amends to those we have harmed. Okay. And I just call them the 12-step programs or the rooms of recovery. And people know who know the anonymous programs. And so I made them. And to be honest with you, I do not remember the specific conversation, but I made my amends. But more importantly, that's verbal. What's the physical amends? My physical amends was this. When I got out of prison in 2007, I got a job that was literally 300, 400 feet from where my mom lived. Every lunch, I had 45 minutes, I'd walk over, and my mother is dying from congestive heart failure. And I would walk over there and spend my lunch with her. Spend 20, 25 minutes. She would get up in her frail condition, make me lunch, just cook up usually some eggs. And then, because you have congestive heart failure, you're very tired, she would sit back down. And then I would eat. I'd fall asleep for about 10 or 15 minutes at like clockwork. And then I would get up and go back to work. And then twice a week, I would take her for her Coumadin, procedure, because you get fluid around the heart. Take her down for that. And then I'd come on Saturdays and take her shopping or wherever she needed to go. And that's a living amends. That's a living amends. That's physical. I'm here. I love you. What do you need? And I did that for the year and a half about a year and a half before she passed. And that's more important to me than saying I'm sorry. But that's important too. I did that. And then we just talked. We just had great conversation. And many times we didn't even talk. We just sat there because, again, she's very, very tired. And we just sat there. And but anyway, beautiful person. And I am so grateful that I did that. Okay. I've done that on 2 occasions. I did that also with my wife. I was there.
Gratitude is important.
Mm-hmm.
It takes humility. Yeah, it takes observation.
Yeah,
and I think no, I'm just saying that you mentioned in the book about it was what are those emotional triggers when people called you names, they called you all sorts of things. It didn't really bother you until somebody said you had situational ethics. And that bothered you. Can you tell me why? And then, how you dealt with that?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. So I was in treatment at a place called Copac in Brandon, Mississippi. And it's a treatment center for individuals in the medical field. I shouldn't have been there, but my mom being in the medical field got me in there. And it's one of the top treatment centers in the nation or world. So I'm there with doctors, nurses, and this gentleman was a psychiatrist. And the reason I was so angry, and I was angry, is because he saw me and I didn't want people to see me. he saw through the persona and the mask. Remember, he's a psychiatrist. Okay. Even though he's got a drug problem and he definitely had an addiction problem. I'm not going to go into that. That's his world. But I can remember like it was just, we were walking, it was an afternoon and we're walking by the dorms and he said, Ken, you know, your problem that you have is that you have situational ethics. You have an ethical grounding, but it depends on the situation, what ethics that you will adhere to or live by. It's wishy-washy. He saw that, and it's true. It was true. But how dare you tell me this, and how dare you see me? Because I didn't want people to see me. I wanted to put on a persona. I wanted to put on a mask, and because I'm intelligent, and I was intelligent then. I can identify environments and situations, and then put on what I believe is going to be most protective of me in that environment. I hope that came out well. So it's going to be a mask. It's good. If I'm with a bunch of white corporate people, I can be white corporate. If I'm with a bunch of African-American thugs on the street, I can be a thug. I can put on the act. That's why the whole name of the book was called Becoming Ken. I just wanted to be Ken Miller, a kind and gentle man. I didn't want to be all these masks. I didn't want to be all these personas. But anyway, he called it out. That's what pissed me off, is that you saw me and I don't want people to see me because this protects me. I believe it protects me. Now I know it didn't protect me. What it did is it allowed me to never feel comfortable about who I truly was. What you hear is who I am. I'm not putting on a mask. I don't need to do that any longer. I just talk from my heart. I talk from my truth. I allow God to come in and direct me. And, you know, if you like me, great. If you don't, I'm fine.
It reminds me of another man I interviewed, Paul Hutchinson, who's a hedge fund manager and I think it was a CIA friend, recruiter, called him a chameleon. He could enter a persona or fit in wherever because he knew how to read others and conform to what he needed to be. And that's what led him to become to do undercover work and trafficking. In regards to your situational ethics, your behavior, your decision patterns, you like you mentioned this rehabilitation center. It's like you do well when you're in there. And then at the moment you left, you go right back to the old habits over and over again. And even worse, right? You'd clean up and then you'd find a new low. What was the turning point when you finally had to clean out for long enough? Like the first, I don't know how many times you went to prison. You were in jail a few times, but you went to prison? You came out of prison the first time with a little bit of money inherited, and you said, "This time is going to be different. This time, I'm going to go into business with a great idea." Right?
Yeah.
You're going to do it right this time, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna be
what was that bright idea?
I'm gonna be a successful drug dealer, which is such a dumb for somebody that went to Ivy League college to think that I was going to be a successful drug dealer was insanity. So I went to 14 inpatient treatment centers. I went to prison 3 times. I've been arrested 20 times. And, you say, what was different? How did you get 20 plus years now? Few things. One, there was some fear because the judge had promised me the habitual criminal statute the next time I came in. So in the state of Nevada, a felony is stealing $50 plus. So if I shoplifted $51, that's a felony. Any felony triggers the habitual criminal statute that the judge had promised me he was going to give. It's like a 3-strike in California. And so I was looking at 25 to life for stealing $51. And I was like, man, I'm not really feeling this. Okay. And I commit felonies on the streets. They only caught me for 0.1% of the felonies I committed. Okay. That's number one. Number two, I had a conversation with God about a month into jail, October of 2004. And very simply, it was a conversation of, this is not going to be easy. This is not going to be without pain or discomfort. I'm talking about recovery, but I will be there with you and we can get to the other side. And 100%, that's been the truth. Yeah, there's been pain. There's been discomfort. There's been tough days, but I've gotten through all of them knowing that I have a power with me and that this too shall pass. Then the third thing, which is also a very important one, is I had enough intellectual ability to understand, what do I need to solve for? What are my problems? I have a problem physically. I have a problem intellectually. I have a problem emotionally, and I have a problem spiritually. And the state of Nevada has been kind enough to give me 3 years to work on these. Free room and board. Okay. In fact, they paid me when I was in there $21 a month to work for them. And so I worked on all 4 of those areas. And when I came out of prison, I was a different man. Was I cured? Was I the person I am today? No way. But I had enough foundation of sobriety. I had enough foundation of sanity. I had enough foundation of some emotional growth. I had enough foundation of some spirituality that I could deal with what we call the vicissitudes of life. I could deal with the little setbacks of life. And I had some, especially those first 2-3 years, because there was defense mechanisms that I had acquired from my childhood, my time on the streets, my time in the penitentiary, that were not good for me in the civilian world. I call it the civilian world. And so I had to look at those, and I still had to grow. But I want to say this, and this is my truth, Aaron. I've been well for about 4 years. And when I mean by well, I'm not working on me today. I am not working on me. I do life. And how do you know you do life well enough? Because first of all, I don't have a lot of discomfort or pain, nor do I have external circumstances or people reflecting back friction with me. And I hope people understand what I'm saying there. And the key part about being well is it allows me space and capacity to give out, because I'm not spending all my time working on me, reading the next self-help book, listening to whatever podcast, going online and looking at YouTube videos to get well, quote unquote. Instead, I work with others and help them to achieve success and wellness as they define it. So that's where I'm at there.
Well, you can't do that in a vacuum, right? While you're helping others, you're healed yourself.
For sure. For sure. Let me give you an example real quick, Aaron, on that, because you just brought up a point. I mentor 12 men all over the country for free. I've been mentoring for 15 years. I teach classes on mentorship. I'm writing a book on mentorship. And every time I meet with my men, and I meet with them officially every 3 months for 1 hour. And I always have a theme every 3 months. And the theme this month, because it was the month we met, and then we'll meet in January, was truth. Let's talk about truth. And I tell the guys, by the time I get to the third or fourth guy that I'm speaking with, and I only mentor men, I know the subject really well because I have 1 hour, 4 hours worth of talking about the topic truth. And by the time I get to, get done, I have one more guy tomorrow. I'll have 12 hours of talking about the truth, talking about truth and what does truth mean, all aspects of truth. What we really talked about is truth with a capital T and truth with a small t. And what is the difference between those and how do we manifest truth with ourselves and with the external world?
That's an interesting concept right there. The different definitions of truth. And I know now it seems as though nowadays the definitions start to get blurry. A cousin to truth is authenticity. And I hear people saying I'm being my authentic self, which sometimes to me sounds like having no shame and maybe no standards. Being authentic just means I'm being irresponsible. Whereas the truth, the real authentic, is more of a courage. You mentor men to be their authentic selves. What's your definition of authenticity?
Real. What's real? We have a term on the street. What's really going on? That's how we say it. What's really going on? Okay. And what we're asking for, what is the truth about you or the situation? So let's talk about truth with a capital T. Truth with a capital T. And why we capitalize letters, it makes them into what's called a proper noun. It starts a sentence with a capital letter because it's the beginning and it allows individuals to understand this is the beginning of the sentence. Truth with a capital T is God's truth. You can also call it fact or reality. You can stand on the 19th floor of a building, turn to the people behind you and say, hey, watch this. I can fly because I've taken 4 hits of acid. You can't fly because there's a thing called gravity. And God's truth and reality and fact is that you cannot fly. Even though you think that's your truth. I think I can fly. Okay? Truth with a small t is our interpretation of the present and the past. There is no truth as an individual about the future. You can have an assumption about the future, but you have no truth. God has truth because God is the beginning, the Alpha, and the Omega, the end. Okay? But we have no truth about the future. Okay? The key about being authentic is being open to be revealing. And is being open to your description of truth. What's really going on? Who was in the room? What were the set pieces in the room? We're talking about a past event. What were the set pieces? What was the time? Who, when, why, where, how, what? And then on top of that, when we talk about memory, and I've worked with my guys on this, when we talk about memory, what'd you feel? This is hard. You got to go deep sometimes. And not only that, what did you feel? What was your self-talk in that situation? When your father left you at age 12, how did you feel? And what was your self-talk? Okay, what was your pain? And now if you're talking about in the present being authentic, who are you really? Is this a mask or is this a persona? Or is this the real you? And the only person that can make that determination is you. And I don't even like having it. I don't even like the term. One of the things I do with my guys is I say, don't talk in cliches. Do not talk to me to the best of your ability in cliches, because cliches are an excuse for lazy thinking. Oh, you'll get it because I'm going to give you the cliche. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Bull. That is not the definition of insanity. The definition of insanity is the inability to perceive reality. It means not healthy of mind. Sanus is Latin for health. N-I-N means not. It means not healthy of mind. When you are insane, you cannot perceive reality. You see things, you hear things, you're neurotic, you're psychotic, you're schizophrenic, because you do not perceive truth or reality. That's insanity defined. It is not the cliche. So people will talk to me in cliches. I said, hey, define it. Give me your definition and take your time. So authentic self, not one of my favorite terms. Just be true. Just be true.
You know,
And
it's insane. Taking
one more. And I know that sometimes I get fervent because that's my passion.
Mm-hmm.
The key is many times my mentees are coming to me to solve for a problem. They have a concern or challenge in their work, family, life. We have to ask the right question for me to help you solve the problem. So you have to give me the true question. Don't deflect, don't displace. Give me what is the truth in this situation so that I can use whatever either experience or resources that I have or research. Or I can ask some other people sometimes, with your permission, and help you potentially solve for the problem. But if you got a problem with 4 plus 4 equals, and you come to me and say, hey, what is an orange different from an apple? You've asked me a completely different question, but you're trying to solve for 4 plus 4 equals. Why are we talking about apples and oranges? Give me truth. Give me the problem, and let's try to solve for it.
Well, that's part of the reason for the substance abuse, right? Is to obfuscate, to hide, to mask, the escape from the truth. But then when you pull back the layers, you get to the authenticity, the truth. What is the next step after that? Once you can uncover, be honest, is that? I guess that's the first step, right? Admitting you have a problem, admitting that there's something deeper than just the alcohol or the drugs. What comes after that?
That's a great question. And I'll answer that one. So this was one of my difficulties. I'd get sober, I'd get clean, but I was still broken. And my brokenness affected others and self. And until I could deal with the brokenness, I was doomed to either continue using drugs and alcohol or acting out. In the end, The goal is to change behavior. I don't care about thought. I don't care about feelings. They can be preceding or antecedent to the behavior, but my behavior got me in prison. My behavior created concerns with relationships. It's what I did physically, my acts. Many times to solve for that, we have to deal with the emotion and the intellect. And so I had to go and deal with past issues and look at what are the ways that I deal with that when I'm clean and sober. Am I deflecting? Am I displacing this anger, because it's based on anger and fear, really fear, to others? They're innocent. That's why I kicked the dog when I came in from work. It had nothing to do with the dog. It had to do with me being fear-based and in discomfort and pain due to a situation or a thought. So what I had to do is I had to look at and go into a bunch of rooms, Aaron, and the rooms are memories. And I had to throw some light on those. I had to identify what was in the room. I had to identify how I felt when I was in that room. I had to identify what I said to myself. I had to identify what was the pain of being in that room. And then in many occasions, I had to forgive others and forgive myself. And today, I harbor no resentment against any human being, living or dead. Period. Period. What is a resentment? It comes from the verb sentir. That's the root word. It means to feel, to refeel. It means to refeel a negative emotion. You don't have a resentment toward a happy emotion. What it means to refeel. So if I say Sam Miller, who was my father who shot my mother, before, only thing that came up was anger and fear. That's the only thing. I stopped at that. I didn't go to any intellectual. I just stopped there. I don't. I've forgiven my father. I sat down with him and forgave him. Beautiful thing to do. I've forgiven myself. I've forgiven all those who have hurt me. And the people have hurt me. Physically, put me in the hospital a couple of occasions. I've forgiven them. I let that go. So again, you say, what's the next step? The next step is to let go of these things. But how do you do that? And there are ways. I'm not saying I only way. I did counseling for years. So I'm not like saying I just did this and one day I woke up and let it all go. It took me years. Remember, I've been clean and sober for 21 years, but I've only quote unquote got to the point where I am comfortable with my wellness in the last 4.
What do those, forgive me, what are the chips? What do you receive for so many months, so many years of sobriety?
Mm-hmm.
What do those mean to you?
I mean, one thing, only one thing. They means for 24 hours in a row for that amount of time, whether it's a 30-day coin or chip, whether it's a 21-year coin, I chose to not pick up voluntarily, or will we use the word volitionally, a mind-altering chemical. What it also represents is that I have successfully navigated emotional pain without picking up. The greatest thing you can give an alcoholic, this is in a negative connotation, is not alcohol. It's an excuse. They want to justify doing something that they know deep down inside is inimical or bad to them and their loved ones. But if I have a good enough excuse, you'd understand, wouldn't you? And so that's what that represents. It represents me walking through a lot of things and doing it for 24 hours in a row for that many years, days, months.
Well, I ask because it just so happens this week I received in the mail if you can see this. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
listening on podcasts, listening to it in audio, why aren't you on YouTube? Get over there and
Yep.
subscribe. But anyways, I'm holding up. Can you see the numerals so I can turn it the right way? 32, I believe it is.
Sweet. I love it.
Yeah, sorry. It's 3 X's, 2 I's.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's 32-year sobriety chips. Somebody sent me of theirs with a very heartfelt card.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's quite meaningful to the person to have sent it to me. It's quite an honor. So I wanted to get your take on what those meant to you. So it's quite an incredible gift.
That person walked through a lot of things in 32 years and did not pick up.
That's 32 years of not accepting excuses, not allowing excuses to break through your resolve. So, continuing on with this process, you let go of the resentment and you start making amends for the damage you did to others. What about, I guess, regret? How about, how do you forgive yourself? How do you deal with that emotional, the internal emotions, your self-image?
I'm not going to say it's easy because it's not easy, but it's simple. And the simplicity is I am just a child of God. I am one of 6 billion people. I am not perfect. I am not a God. I have made mistakes. I tell people this all the time. I am guilty of everything I got convicted of. I pled guilty. I didn't fight them. I was guilty. Remember, again, a small percentage of the negative things I have done, did I ever do time? But I was guilty of all of the things. And I understand that. Can I blame it on the addiction or being under the influence? I can. I choose not to. I just blame it on that was Ken Miller at that time, and he no longer engages in that behavior or action. And because of that, I'm cool with that. Let me put it this way. If I can forgive others, why am I so special that I can't forgive myself? Okay. I'm just another individual, just like those people I've forgiven. I've forgiven them as a human. Doesn't mean I quote unquote forgive the act. What my dad did was shitty. He shot my mom 6 times. That's not cool. I'm never saying that's cool. There's things I did that were not cool. Okay. I don't co-sign it. It's all right, Dad, you did that. But what I do is I forgive you as a human. And I understand a lot of your rationale. I do. And there is some rationale behind his pain. Okay. And so I forgive myself as a person. And I still say I'm guilty of everything I do. And I'm cool with that. I got no problem with that. I did it. That's the truth. Okay. So yeah, I forgive, self-forgiving. I'm so good. And this is the other thing. When you do esteemable things in your present, it makes it a lot easier to, let me put it this way, if you continue doing the bad behavior and the things that hurt others and hurt self, it's going to be real, real hard to let go of what you've done in the past. But I'm a good guy. The term I use for myself is I am a kind and gentle man, and I am. I have not put hands on anybody in 21 years. I have not threatened anyone in over 15 years because it goes up, it ratchets. But I haven't even threatened anybody in 15. So I'm just a nice guy. I'm just an easy, nice guy. Don't raise my voice. I don't get mad at people. It's so rare. So rare. So anyway, it was very simple with time. But one of the things I had to do is I also had to look at each and every thing that I did, and understand what my truth was at that point, and then say, hey, Ken, let's let it go. Yeah, you did it. And hey, most of them are in the book. You know that.
That's funny. This is just my own curiosity.
Mhm.
When you were sort of a diplomatic, politic way of saying this, when you were selling sex, did you have a street name like Bishop Don Magic Wand?
No, not at all. Not at all. So for the audience, and he was being very, very nice about it. I used to be a male prostitute. So I used to sell myself for crack cocaine and money to men. Even I did have one woman ask me. That's very unusual. That's a gigolo. I would not that. Okay. Just a street level male prostitute. And, that was very shame based for me for many, many years. And I'm not shame based. That's why I can talk about it like I talk about it and laugh about it. But no, I didn't have a street name. I did have street names at times in different. At one time in college, they used to call me Baked Alaskan because I was from Alaska and I was always baked. It means I was, high on weed. So I was called Baked Alaskan. And I've been called a few other names. Some of I'm not going to say on this show. But I didn't have a street name because remember, I kept that hidden because I didn't want the thugs to know that I was doing this. And I didn't want them to know in penitentiary that I was this. No. And unfortunately, I need to get going here in the next couple minutes because I have another meeting.
Well, is there anything I haven't asked you yet that I should have?
There's a lot you haven't asked me, but that's fine. There's so much to my willingness to share. But I want to end with this. I own 5 businesses today. I am a millionaire. I have a beautiful wife. I have stepchildren. I have grandchildren. I have friends. I mentor. I speak all over the country. I am blessed. Sometimes I nod my head or shake my head, can't believe how good my life is. But I've put in a lot of work and I made a lot of good decisions. I made a succession. I have not been perfect, but I'm good. I'm good today. I'm good with life. I can handle life. It's a pleasure to be on a show like this. Why am I on this show? I'm not here to do anything to make money or sell more books or to get on more stages. I just hope that I can share a message that someone will resonate with. And if it resonates and you want to get a hold of me, look me up on LinkedIn. I'm Ken Miller 84. I'd give you my phone number. Or, here, I'll give you my email, ken@denalifsp.com. Email me. But you go to my LinkedIn, you'll find me. Ken Miller 84 is my handle. Communicate with me. I've had people who've read my book who have come and had lunch with me, flew up here. I live in the Seattle area. So again, it's just been my joy to give back. I have a message. I have information that's hopeful and inspiring. And I have a gift that God's allowed me to be able to share. You're talking about authentic. I haven't seen too many more people, and I've been on and seen a lot of podcasts that are as open and as authentic as I. The only thing that I will not share is things about my family, period. Other than that, anything about me, anything I've done in the past, ask me. And you just like you did, I'll talk about it. So it leaves me in a good place. And also, it's also protective of others. So again, I want to thank you for allowing me to have this time on your wonderful podcast. Great questions. And thank you to the audience.
Well, Ken, thank you very much for your time. Do you have 2 more minutes just to run through the quick countdown to impact?
Sure, no problem.
All right. Well, then the final segment is the Countdown to Impact. That's 3 books, 2 quotes, and 1 person who have all made an impact in your life.
Oh, awesome. So I've read over 1,000 books since 2004. I started writing down all the books I've read. Last year I hit 1,000, of which probably 900 of them are nonfiction. So I love to read. So 3 books. Every gentleman that I mentor always start off with the same 2 books. And those books are The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden and The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. And then the 3rd book I would recommend is Deep Work by Cal Newport. 2 quotes. My favorite quote of all time is, in the end, you will do what you want to do bad enough, period. And another quote is, I'll just throw one out. This too shall pass. Okay. No, let me give another quote, because that one is a cliche. It comes from the Rules of Recovery. I'll give you one of my own. And that one is, I'll just do this one, is I am responsible for my well-being. Okay. Okay. And then the person, hands down, was my mother. And that's my adoptive mother, was literally the finest human being I've ever met. And I am so blessed and grateful. She has been passed away for 15 years, but so blessed to have had her in my life. And I think I emulate many of her finer qualities or finest qualities. She didn't have any bad qualities in my book. So that's it.
Terrific. And we've got your contact information, which will, if anybody wants to reach out, will be in the show notes. You said mentioned it earlier. If you'd like to visit again, that's fine. But I really do, again, appreciate your time and your experience and sharing that with the Point of Impact audience.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.